Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I know this is I know a lot of, we know you, we've done stories with you, but of course, the public wants to know you. So just first give us a little bit of background on who you are and your political career and, anything else you want to tell us.
I'd be happy to, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Look, I'm a kid who grew up in Washington Heights, and back in the day when you know this was a much different city. A lot of big companies and corporations didn't want to come to places like Washington Heights and invest in our communities. So one of the things that I always admired and loved about my neighborhood is it was the mentors and the parents and the uncles who aunts who built up the community. And we may not have all had a lot, but we certainly had enough. And I loved going to not just my local public school, but also Kennedy High School in the Bronx, because when you're Washington Heights, you don't go downtown, you go to the Bronx. And it was really a great way to grow up and to be part of this great city. And during my political career, I've had the greatest opportunity to serve our city. I'm a former state assembly member, so I certainly know that we need a reset with Albany. I'm a former borough president, so I know about community-based planning, land use and zoning. And I've been the city's chief fiscal officer for the last 8 years. So I know every city agency. I know where the waste and the bloat is. And I know how we can redirect that money to do the most good in so many of our communities who have struggled during COVID. And when you put all that together, I would argue that I have the vision and the skills to be the mayor, but I also am ready on day one because of that experience, because of that forward-looking view I've had about how we can move this city forward.
Okay, so yeah, your political, I mean, like you mentioned, you've held several different positions, and different types of positions too. What made you want to take this leap and run for mayor?
I have these two little kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. I got married a little late in life. And I look in their eyes every day, every morning. And I know how they've struggled with remote learning and the challenges they face. And I'm somebody who doesn't have a lot of acquired wealth, so I can't leave them a lot, but I can leave them the greatest city in the world. And that to me is very important. It's what makes me do this campaign every day. And it's not just about my kids, it's about the kids in this city, many who are struggling, many who are living in homeless shelters with broken remote devices, many kids who are in public housing with internet access that doesn't work. And I want to use my skills and my government experience to create a new city for the kids who struggled the most. I see it with my kids, but look, I've got a lot of privilege, right? A two-income family, a credit card. That's the exception, not the rule. And the next mayor has to make sure that we do right by the kids. And so when you say, what does it for me? It's the notion that I could leave them something amazing. And we're going to, because I'm going to bring this economy back to life. I'm not going to open the economy the same way we closed it. We are going to invest in the communities hit hardest by COVID, communities of color, communities that have struggled. And look, this is, I'm talking to you on the anniversary of the first COVID case, but next month is the anniversary of the 1-year passing of my mother, who died at a Bronx hospital from COVID, 86 years old, pre-existing health conditions. And I still remember the doctor telling me that night, because he wanted me to know that this virus was not just about our older parents and grandparents, but so many people in their 50s and 40s were coming into Bronx hospitals, people of color who were just treated, just had pre-existing health conditions that existed, but government never helped solve them. And I tell you, we need a mayor who understands that, who gets that, and can use the experience that I've acquired to walk in on day one and say enough is enough. We're going to build this city the way it always should have been built for everybody.
You kind of mentioned this, but um, like, what are some specific things you want to get in there and do right away? Like, what makes you feel like you would be such a good fit for this role?
Look, it's a real advantage for me to walk in and know the financial situation facing the city, both the short-term economic challenges and the long-term. And yes, we are going to get what I think is a significant uh, $5.6 billion stimulus package, but that's really step one. The question is, once the package arrives, how do you appropriate the money so it lasts in a meaningful way? Money of that magnitude, can be frittered away with someone just learning how to be mayor. And I believe that I have the expertise, agency by agency. I know where the waste and the bloat is, starting with the Department of Education. I know how to redirect money into the programs that we need. I do believe we have to address immediately the challenge of our small businesses. We've lost 2,800 small businesses that used to be part of our city, and they're gone. And we also lost 500,000 jobs in the process. So we've got to give every opportunity for our small businesses to hang in and to create programs that will allow them to slowly recover. That has to be linked with not just tax breaks and getting fines and fees away from these small businesses, but let's take advantage of our transportation network. Let's build a new city by opening up our streets and by bringing retail and restaurants to life, not just outside during the pandemic, but to make it part of the new culture of our city. I think people are waiting to see a mayor with creativity, with a vision for how we can sort of challenge our city. And then we got to start addressing the issues that have plagued this city. We have a homeless crisis that's gotten worse, not better, even though we're throwing tons of money at the problem. We're not seeing homelessness managed from a perspective of a homeless person who is struggling with no way to where to go and languishing on our streets. That's not the way the greatest city in the world should treat our people. And that's why I have a real affordable housing plan. But we also have to think about how we break the silos of homelessness and housing. And I would love to have an opportunity to build the housing that Mayor LaGuardia built with public housing and the Mitchell-Ama housing programs. I have thought about this for a very long time. I'm ready to go if we get that opportunity.
Another big issue too, police reform. Where do you stand on police reform?
I'm going to appoint a police commissioner who's aligned with my values and my strategies. We have got to redirect police priorities. We've got to build out a mental health network so that we can help people in communities. Do you know that 9/11 calls, 40% of 9/11 calls are not for crimes in progress, but for mental health issues or quality of life issues? Why are we sending the police into communities to do this work? They're not trained for it. They're not built for it. And yet we continue to make the same mistake over and over again. So I'm going to transform this police department. I have a specific plan that would allow us to make sure that we actually target the people who are doing the guns and the violence, but at the same time we build out a multi response network that can keep kids safe, keep them away from the criminal justice system. That's the community safety plan of the future, and that's the plan I've developed.
You mentioned your two children. Where do you stand, and what do you want to see change within the city's education system?
Everything. I believe, look, I have these two little kids, a third grader and a second grader. They're public school kids. To have a mayor with kids in public school at this moment in time, uh, I think is important. I can tell you, look, remote learning, my wife and I have struggled greatly. But as I mentioned earlier, we also have resources to take care of that. So many of our parents can't even think about how to make that difference up. So it's going to be up to the Department of Education, the new Department of Education, and a new mayor to provide the critical services the kids need, whether it's mental health, closure on the loss of parents and grandparents, but also the learning aspect of this. We really don't know the full impact of what remote learning means. I was just on a parent conference call this morning with my 7-year old's teachers. And you just feel that as much as these kids are trying, this barrier has been really intense. And so the next mayor has to, one, feel it here, right? Because you got to know it. You can't just read about it. And then you have to have the ability to manage the Department of Education and all that bureaucracy and all of that dysfunction. And we have to make sure that we over resource classrooms, not under resource classrooms. But look, you see hundreds of millions of dollars wasted by this de Blasio administration on bureaucracy. And the other thing I want to mention to you is when you think in the future, I will give the mayor credit for the expansion of pre-K, very successful, very critical. But now we can't stop there. The next mayor has to develop what I call my NYC under three plan. I want to make childcare affordable for New Yorkers all over the city. No matter what your income is, you should have affordable and free childcare. And we could build that network. And NYC under three, I have a bill introduced in Albany already with Jessica Ramos that would provide the funding to close childcare deserts and also give kids the extra benefit of a 0 to 3 child care education. And look, we now know the data. 80% of brain development happens between ages 0 to 3. So let's meet this challenge head on as we think about how we're going to educate our children in the future.
And you kind of mentioned, Mayor De Blasio. So, what are your thoughts, on the current job that's been done under his administration, and what are changes that you would like to make?
Look, I think we need a reset from this administration. I don't think we need a third term. I think we need a new voice, a new vision. What I'm running as is a progressive, but also a progressive who's going to manage this city, who's going to give the kind of uh, forward thinking, specific programmatic leadership that the city needs. Look, it to me, I know Albany. We're resetting that relationship. I know land use and zoning. I know economic development, served as a borough president for 8 years, working on those issues. Community board reform, giving people a voice in their communities. That's how you're going to do the big things. And then as controller, not only did I manage the pension fund for 7 years, hitting the actuarial target. This is more inside baseball, which is my chief fiduciary responsibility for 350,000 retirees in the system, 350,000 that will be in the system. But I also did some of the most important work for our society. You know, we were able to divest $4 billion from fossil fuel. I was able to divest from the private prison industrial complex, and everyone said I couldn't do it and it couldn't be done. But I put together the kind of office that is ready to do big things, and I fully intend to do that as mayor of New York City.
Also, the pandemic. I know we're still, going through it, and people are being vaccinated right now, and there's been a lot of issues in trying to figure out how to take on a role like that. What would you do, if you were mayor right now, in terms of fighting the pandemic, and what will you do, if you were to win in in tackling pandemic related issues?
We didn't know that the virus was here. Think back to a year ago, right? No one anticipated or expected it. But the one thing we knew when the virus arrived, that the vaccine was in the works. We didn't exactly know when it was coming, but any medical journal, any article you would read, a miracle was unfolding in this world, and that was called the vaccine. And now we have Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J. What I don't understand about this administration is the slow ramp up of inoculation. It was lazy. It was not well thought out. We're still making up for it. The website's so cumbersome and impossible for people in their older ages to navigate that website. It is complicated. It is ridiculous. And this is just bad management, bad planning, which is typical of this administration. And that has to change. So the first thing I would do if I were mayor today, we would not have a rollout like this. We would be doing better because we would have thought about this plan for it. But whatever other way we have to bring the city back, we have to have a different view of the world. It's not about being lazy and taking the easy way out. The next mayor has got to energize the city government, attract the best and the brightest to the government, and do the things we need to bring our city back. Because one, we can't open up the same way we closed because we see the systemic racism, we see the inequity, and we got to stop talking about it and actually have a mayor who's going to do it. And then we got to build a coalition of people, advocates and experts to get this job done. That's what I want to do on day one. I want to walk into City Hall and I want to have to everybody a feeling of urgency of now. Bring labor, business community, advocates to the table, and let's transform our city. This is going to be a very tough runway. There's going to be a lot of turbulence. This is not going to be an easy moment. And so planning and capacity building in the office of mayor is going to be paramount if we're going to be successful.
A lot of work for sure. You kind of mentioned NYCHA and housing, and your plan for affordable housing. We're Bronx, Brooklyn news station. So specifically, how does your plan target these two boroughs?
Look, I have audited NYCHA more than any controller in history. I know the stairwells and the light bulbs that are busted. I know the challenges of lead paint. I know the management challenges and the lack of repairs at NYCHA because I exposed it as controller. There was no management in place. And you want to talk about urgency of now? This was a slow walk by government officials. We have never had a robust relief package from Washington through Democratic and Republican administrations. And we've never even tried to create our own revenue streams to at least fix the windows and the boilers. And I have a plan for that with Battery Park City funding. But I also know that if we're going to get out of this, we have to go back to what Mayor LaGuardia thought about public housing. It was built because it was aspirational. Because if you got a nitro apartment, you were on your way to the middle class. You had open space and play space for kids. But my investigations show, for example, that the playgrounds in NYCHA are dangerous, jagged edges on the slides for so many kids. I said to the mayor, just do the inspections and fix the playground so the children, 100,000 of them, are not in a dangerous situation. They couldn't do that. And now we have bureaucracy and bureaucracy at NYCHA. I will upend all of this. We are not going to create more bureaucracy. We're going to streamline repairs. We're going to work on the playgrounds. We're going to fix the infrastructure at NYCHA. We're going to bring labor and business together to go to Washington to finally get the money that we deserve. And I want this to be the housing that Mayor LaGuardia always thought it would be: housing for immigrants, housing for the poorest people in the city who have the most important jobs, right? So the people who live at NYCHA, the frontline delivery workers, the people who actually saved all of us, got us food, took care of our kids, did all the things that they were asked of, and yet they go back to their own families and live in squalor. That has to change. And that means open the economy differently than we closed it.
I think I tackled like all of the big
You did.
questions, and I know I'm running out of time, so I have a couple quick questions for you, some fun ones.
Uh-huh.
Although
Uh-uh.
some people could be like, these are just how do you choose? But what is your favorite New York City restaurant?
No way. uh, I'll say this. Uh, this is why our restaurants have to come back, because that's the fun of being a New Yorker. You get to go to different places. Now, my wife and I, we have, one particular restaurant that, literally we go to so much that they've watched my kids grow up at the same table, the same menu. And I can't wait to go back there to just relive these amazing memories we've had with our kids.
I think your answer was correct. You can't pick one, right?